It looks far from good, but good from far. I like my NCY suspension, but I think the stock shock is quality built. I wanted to paint it just to get rid of that orange. I'm going to paint the front too, but I figured while I had it apart to paint it, I might as well pull it apart, do a video on rebuilding it, and change the oil in it, which is probably totally not necessary. I think the big reason I like the NCY is because it's squishy. I think maybe if you weighed 240 pounds or more, maybe this stock shock would be nice, but it feels like a brick to me. This is your orange and white Maddog rear shock that comes on the 50s and the 150s for single-sided shock. It's obviously not orange anymore. I pulled it apart to paint it. I thought I'd make a video on pulling it apart and putting it together. But to keep the videos short, I think I'm just going to put it together and then tell you how to put it apart while I'm putting it together. That'll hopefully reduce the length by 50%. But these are a good shock. I just wanted to paint this one black with the red spring, so figured I'd pull it apart. And you see the shaft is plenty strong. It's got the rubber stop bumper. It's got a bottom and spring in it. It looks like it has a compression dampen circuit only, no rebound. I'm sure the NCY probably has rebound, but everything looks quality. And here's the most amazing thing, this little valve stem right here. I did test it on the air compressor. The valve stem is real and it works, and so is the orifice. It goes through to the bottom, and this thing actually will hold air pressure. So that shocked me, because all I ever heard was that the valve stem was fake. I pull everything apart and place it with the upside up, just like if it was sitting on the shock on the bike, so I know how to put it back together. To pull it apart, this has to come off. This is a threaded top part of the shock. It comes off. It doesn't come off in the bottom like a traditional shock. This is not split, so you can't get it around the shaft. So you'll pull the top off. There is oil in it, and the oil I'm using, I'm going to go ahead and use 20 weight. I think it's a bit thick, but it looks like I got about 40 cc's out of there, and I'm going to go with 40 cc's back in it. It was pretty full for new oil. If ever you don't, for suspension, if ever you don't know what oil to use, or you don't have oil, you can always use automatic transmission fluid. I think automatic transmission fluid's about 7 weight, and it works well in suspension, front and rear, but especially rear shocks. This probably will be a bit thick. That's how you'll see the shock sitting on your bike. There's a rubber bump stop on the bottom. This nut is holding everything together. So to pull your shock apart, everything wants to spin. The trick is to slide this up, grab your 18mm wrench, and then you can loosen this nut. And we'll talk about how to get to all this later, but I'm doing this in reverse, because we're going to use that to tighten all this down before we put the spring and this top cap and everything else on. So I'm going to assemble this in the order I took it off. The bump stop goes on the bottom. We'll raise that later to tighten. And then we're going to put the body on. That's going to hold the oil and all the parts. Inside this body, right back in here, is your O-rings in there. I'm not going to pull those out, but they're right there. That's what's creating the seal for the oil not to come out and fall over the bottom of the shock. So if you have a leaky shock, you might want to replace those O-rings. You can always use a little bit of grease around the shaft. It mixes with the oil fine. This is from on mountain bikes. This is the SRAM butter, they call it. And it works pretty good to not cut that O-ring when you're putting it back together. Body's pretty hard to put on that shaft. I'm afraid I'm going to tear up that O-ring in there. Now I'm just going to finish it smooth with this finer file. Okay, it's a little bit smoother surface. I don't think it'll cut that O-ring. I'm going to re-put some of this grease on there. slides right in. That's what we're looking for. There's a second O-ring in there. So you got to go through 2 O-rings. I don't know if you can see that or not. Find some. Ooh, there's some sun. Yeah, so you got to go through 2 O-rings. That shaft's going to stop and hit the second O-ring. So be careful to not cut the second O-ring. Keep the shaft real straight. Put the bottom in spring. It's not as easy as I thought to put those on. This thingy on. And this is next. Then this thing. So there was some play in there. So that thing was kind of giving me a fit putting it on. So I took this, got the shaft centered, and I took this socket and pushed it in there. And it sets down about that far. And then we'll put these washers on. For those, I'll just put them on a shaft here so they don't all fall around sideways. Stick that there. Toss them all in there. So those are all in there. They're supposed to go. Okay, put the nut on there. We just started by hand. Looks like it's not cross-threaded. It's going on there good. And you'll get to a point where it'll just, you know, spin around. So to get it tight, pull up on the body. Get rid of this, slide that up, the bump stop. Put your 18mm on here. And we'll tighten it up here. To Guten tight Newton meters. And these rings will not slide over this, so they're going to go on next. None of them will. So we're actually going to put oil in it. We're going to put the spring on it and everything before we do this. So the ring that holds the spring on the bottom with the little groove going up will go on first. Okay, who caught that mistake? This was supposed to go on before I put the body on. That sucks. Oh, don't forget to put this on first. Get that on. Then, now these do thread over here. So no problem on these, no problem on this one. But that bottom one's got to go on first. Back to the drawing board. Installed properly this time. We'll pull the ring up, we'll pull this bump stop up, and we'll go Guten tight. I did a video on the Gen 1 forks, which I liked a lot, so I probably would not upgrade those. I have taken these forks apart, the Gen 4. I need seals. I'm going to order seals for them, and when I get the seals I'll do a video on these forks. I will probably keep these forks and not do NCY. They look like they're pretty well made. We will find out what the hell those things do and if I can throw them in the trash or not. Alright, it's time to put the spring on. So we've got the spring holder on the bottom here. We'll slide the spring on. It's still wet. I have no patience when it comes to paint drying. We'll thread the top part on with a little lip on it that holds the spring centered. Again, you'll have to lift up on the bump stop. Slide your 18 wrench in there. Oh, won't fit. Oh. So to pull this thing apart and then subsequently put it together, to get a hold of that nut, you're going to have one of these really thin wrenches. Bicycle wrenches work good. and it's an 18 millimeter. So if you have like a set of bicycle tools with those flat wrenches, those seem to do the trick. It looks like I can grab it with this thin old Craftsman. And of course, another method, you could just throw a rag around there, grab it with the big old pair of channel locks. Let's see, we'll be trying to turn this way, and hold it in place with that while you did your spanner wrench. So all sorts of ways to hold it when you're taking it apart and putting it together. You're going to need these collars down far enough so this top cap can tighten, and that top cap tightens about right there. So we're going to want about that much. So we've got to go that much further in. Alright, so we've got the collars on with the spring pushed down far enough that this will go on and seal with that O-ring. Measured that. And now we can put the oil in. So again, I got like a 40 cc's of oil. About what I figured I took out. So I'm going to put 40 back in there. And I'm using 20 weight. I think that's a little bit thick. Not too concerned. Not even concerned about the dog hair I'm pouring in there right now. Once you got the oil in there, you can put this top cap on. And same thing, if you try to tighten this, it's just going to spin the whole thing around. You can even hold it down here. Doesn't matter, it's going to spin the whole thing around. So you got to grab this body somewhere, or you got to take your little skinny wrench and put it down there on that nut under the pump stop, or you can take your big water pump pliers and hold the body. There's nothing on this body. No reason it can't be scratched. There's nothing flowing on it or anything. It's just going to look bad. Take my little wrench and put down there on that nut. I stuck just a drift through the top hole, so it'll give me some torque on that top cap. Just get it good and snug so that O-ring seals up. Got the top tight. Remember, that hole actually does go through. We don't want to pour oil out of there, so there'll be a little O-ring on your valve stem. Put that valve stem back in. Tighten it down. I doubt I'm going to put any air in there, but you could put air in it. It's legit.